Hello everybody and welcome back to KXP, where we aim to explore the cosmos in Kerbal Space Program. Today's episode, I wanted to land on Minmus. I was aiming to do that. However, we're using remote tech, and that's pretty brutal when it comes to your communications network. So I don't have communications for Minmus, yet I want to get some science for it anyways. We're going to need larger satellite dishes, so our main goal today is to do a flyby. All the missions we have here are airplane missions, so we're going to grab some in a second. But our goal is to do a flyby and get as much science as we can. But first, we're going to go into mission control and spend our vast amount of wealth. We have over $1 million here, and we are going to use some of that to unlock the Search the Skies mission. And all it does is it costs $125,000 and it takes about a year. But in that, we will discover one or possibly more celestial bodies in our solar system. And that is how we discover everything. Because if you remember from our first episode, we are alone. As far as we know of our moons, we know of the sun, and that is it. So that's going to take about a year. We needed to grab that as soon as possible if we wanted to start making progress farther out. So we're going to grab this Start Exploring Minmus contract. It's basically just to transmit some science, and that's fairly easy. So we don't have too many contracts dealing with Minmus at the moment because we're kind of rushing our way there. We need to gather a lot more science. Our engines are awful. Our tech is very low tech, and I want to start unlocking some better things. And for that, we need more science. We are going to be mounting a crewed mission to the MINTZ soon as well, and we're actually going to be mounting a few missions in Kerbal on Kerbin. We're not going to send them into the sun. Here I am just upgrading mission control. We have plenty of money, so now it is fully upgraded and we can take an unlimited amount of mostly unlimited amount of contracts. We're going to take this Test the Separatron 1, and that's over the orbit of the Mun or something. It doesn't matter. I'm taking it because we don't have access to Separatrons at the moment, and by taking that contract, it gives us temporary usage of it, and we are going to abuse that. Same with this Sphinx liquid fuel engine. It was the best engine that we've had so far. It's a terrible engine, but it's the best engine we've had so far, and we were able to utilize that contract in the last episode. But since we completed that contract, we no longer had access to the engine, so we took that to once again get that. And we're going to take this Airstream protective shell. I believe we have to test that, in orbit of the sun, but we're going to take that. We're going to upgrade our tracking station as well because we have still over $1 million. That was quite expensive, but well worth it because now we have the highest amount of coverage from our tracking station. Still not enough though. So I was initially thinking about just utilizing the same rocket as I did for our Mun landing, and this is before I realized that I would not be able to land, that the goal would be a flyby. At this current time, the goal is for a landing, so I have 3 goo canisters and 3 of each experiment, and that is going to be for high space, low space, and whatever biome we landed on. There we go, and we're just going to try to build this pretty much the same as we usually do in these early game things, just a cargo bay stuffed full of science experiments, all on an action group for each set, for each situation. That way we can control our satellite without having to right click on all the different pieces and parts. We do have the mod X Science, which allows us a little UI that we can just instantly collect all our science, but I kind of like using the action groups more. We still keep it around. Okay, so now that we got all of our science equipment in there, we're going to throw in some batteries and this should be good to go. This should have plenty of batteries, plus these solar panels. This should have plenty of batteries to be able to land on Minmus. Doesn't need that much electricity to do the experiments and transmit. We're going to probably transmit whenever we finished, but that is not the case. Today what we are going to do is we are going to do a flyby of the Minmus. And while we're doing that flyby, we will not have any signal because it is farther out than we actually have communications for. So this probe is going to go silent and have no control. But we are using remote tech, which one of the features of it, you know, it's not just to make your life harder, but it has a feature called the flight computer. And the flight computer is a way that you can plot in certain actions of your craft ahead of time. So that way, if you don't have signal at a particular time, you can still execute a maneuver. Real fast, I just want to point out we are going to put on a Minmus flag. That's the Minmus flag, and that's the Kerbal, because this is going to Minmus. And so I'm going to be having, that's what one of the things we're going to be doing in this episode, or in this series, is utilizing the flags from the flag mod that I mentioned in the first episode. We're going to be utilizing those for each celestial body we visit. So each one has its own unique thing. Anyways, back to the build. We're looking at the Sphinx, and it's got such a terrible thrust to weight ratio. Like, it is under 1 no matter what you do, and all my other options currently are less than that. And I'm looking at this engine and I'm like, how is this so terrible? And then everything else I have is even worse. So that's the situation that I'm in. I'm in desperate need of science because we need new rocket engines. But thankfully we have these Separatrons, so that will keep our discarded stages from destroying the engine that we have. And we're still under 1 on our thrust to weight ratio, even with these 4 side boosters. So we are going to have to add some solid rocket boosters on that as well. I'm turning off the gimbaling on all the side engines, but leaving the gimbaling on, but at 50% in the center one, because I've found in my tests that it has a little too much wiggle room for that. So here we are, putting on the biggest SRB we have, also throwing on some Separatrons on there to get it out of our way when it gets discarded. Not as much of a concern as the bigger side boosters, because those ejection force of the side decoupler is pretty intense. So I'm getting all my stages correct. I'm gonna put some parachutes on these SRBs to hopefully recover some of the funds later. And we actually have a thrust to weight ratio of over 1, so this rocket will be going to space. So here we are on a cloudy morning, ready to send a probe to the furthest reaches that we've discovered thus far. It's going to lose control, and we are going to put our faith in computers. We are going to plot out its course using flight computer. So our first stage flames out, and our side boosters separate very easily. And those will, hopefully, the parachutes will deploy and they will come back safely. So now that they have been gone, we're starting to tilt over. I did forget to stage the second set of SRBs for quite a while, so we were actually probably losing momentum, because we still don't have a 1 or higher thrust to weight ratio at this moment from our lower engines. It's actually right when I separate the SRBs that we actually get to 1.01. And we're taking a very straight up trajectory, very vertical. Oh, look at that storm right there. Anyways, we're taking a very straight up trajectory because I've learned through my test flights that if I dip anything lower than, you know, this It's kind of 85, 80 degree tilt that I have, that I run the risk of losing too much speed and not being able to break through the atmosphere into space. So we're going to actually have to just kind of ride this angle, this launch profile, until our apoapsis reaches space, in which case then we can afford to move ourselves over. But until we can actually break free the atmosphere, I don't trust this rocket to not dip down and crash back on the surface. So that is why I really like the crash mod. Is it crash mod? The flight simulator mod that we're using, I believe it's Crash, because these things you need to learn in beforehand, before you mount your mission, before you lose Kerbals to problems or spend all this money on a rocket just to have it crash into the sea. So our apoapsis is steadily climbing, but as you can see, our trajectory is falling. If we were to be following our prograde, we would not be reaching space today. So we're going to keep pointing up as we pass 60 kilometers. I had the landing page open for some reason, didn't need that. And then there we go. Our apoapsis has just broken the Kármán line, so now we can afford to start tipping ourselves over a little bit. But I still need height, so I don't want to tip myself over straight away. And we're about to stage our side boosters, so I don't want to be... I don't want those interfering with our rocket. So we get flame out, and we separate, and they spin quite hilariously. And they too have parachutes on them, so hopefully we'll be able to recover that. Those funds as well. Alright, so now we have once again below 1 thrust to weight ratio. However, we are now in space, so that doesn't matter as much. You know, it matters more when you're dealing with atmosphere. So we're going to go ahead and plot in our circularization burn, and it turns out that we had to burn basically immediately in order to make the maneuver that we plotted. So we burned immediately, pointed ourselves towards our target. We're a couple seconds off, so it won't be perfect, but hopefully we have enough delta V to cover it. And looking at our nav ball, it looks like that's going to be the case. I really like the plume on this engine. It's quite gorgeous. I think that's from Waterfall, or maybe it's from whichever mod provides this engine. What I was showing there is the fact that we activate our action group, so now we have full coverage of our satellite. So we're going to skip ahead to the end of this burn, the circularization. As you can see, we are now coming into orbit. Camera shifted, and we have reached space on the other side in our periapsis, and we're just kind of coming in. This burn, however, was not done with remote tech, and I had kind of forgotten that, and so when I was expecting it to turn off, it did not, because it was still under my control. But thankfully, we didn't lose enough altitude that we would be coming back into the atmosphere. So all's well that ends well. There we go. We've got no satellites around Minmus. You can see our little satellite coverage that we have right now. So we only have control as far as the MUN, basically. So we plotted in our relative inclination burn, and that, for anyone who doesn't know, Minmus sits on a different plane than Kerbal does, and so we have to match the plane in order to meet up with it more accurately. So as we see here, our relative inclination goes down and approaches 0. And flight computer handled that pretty much perfectly. So when we leave it in the hands of the computer, we can more accurately guarantee our maneuvers. So here we're just going to be plotting in our flyby. We want to make sure that we come in nice and low because we want low space as well. And once again, we're just cutting forward to the burning of the process. But we are going to be spending more time now unedited. There you go. See, flight computer turned it off pretty much exactly. A little bit higher than I wanted, but still well within the range that we needed. And as I motioned up there, we still have signal currently. So now is the time that we're going to need to plan stuff. So I click here in our maneuver and take note of the time. Now in the flight computer in this bottom right hand corner, you can type in the 12 days, 4 hours, and 11 minutes that it will take to reach that point right there. And so what that does is that puts a delay. So now we can activate our first set of science, our Action Group 1, and that will give us high space. Now I look here and there's 13 days, 0 hours, and 24 minutes. So I'm going to plot that in now, and I hit enter. And then when I go back out to the screen where our craft is, because we can't put in the maneuver from the map screen, but when I go out to the craft screen, when I hit the 3 key, it activates the third action group. And because I put that delay in there, it doesn't activate the action group right now, but it will wait that set amount of time and then activate it. So now lastly, 22 days later, we are going to be coming back and we'll be close enough to Kerbal that we should be able to transmit our science. So we plotted in the delay, and we're going to come here to the part, right click on it because we don't have an action group set for that. So we're just going to right click on the part and hit transmit all science. And as you see there in the flight computer, it plotted that in as well. Here you can see the green lines of communications, the satellites that we're connecting from. We dropped out momentarily, but then reconnected. And eventually these will go away, and we will have no more signal. And when we have no more signal, it's not like how it is in stock KXP, where you can kind of do a few actions. You can kind of maneuver it. You can put it in and out of hibernate, or turn its communication devices on or off. But here we have no signal. We can do absolutely nothing. But that's the beauty of flight computer, is because we've plotted in these things, it has it stored, and when the time is right, it will activate the things that we told it to. So here we are approaching the changeover, the SOI, and right on time, it activates the action group and all of our science experiments fire. No control, as you can see in the top left-hand corner. We have nothing we can do. We didn't press a key or anything like that. So now we're going to approach Minmus, come around its dark side. That's where our periapsis will be, and the science will activate again. I did, however, stay in cinematic mode during this time, so the science just kind of activated in the background, but was stored nonetheless, and when it comes time to transmit it, everything will be great. So we say goodbye to Minmus, so we leave it on behind. We look over, we have a fun little encounter with the Mun, but that's not on our way to Kerbal, that's actually on our way back. So if we were to continue the orbit, we would get a Mun flyby as well. However, the orbit that we have right now is ballistic, and we will definitely be crashing into the surface. But, you know, kind of fun to see the orbital mechanics plot in. So here we go. We are approaching the planet. I have the Communitron transmit all science maneuver plotted in, which doesn't really matter because we have control at the moment. We could actually transmit it right now, but for some reason it's not giving me the buttons to do so. So that's a little concerning. So by the way, a little tip, as soon as you're done putting in your delay, your signal delay, put it back to 0, because you will forget, just like I did, and then you'll try to do an action and then find out that it's going to be done 22 days later. So we accidentally time warped through our maneuver, and because it's not an actual maneuver, it's just transmitting of science, the time warp didn't throttle back, and so basically we just missed it because we were in time warp, unfortunately. However, we still have signal, and so what I did is I deactivated my communication devices, thinking that maybe I just needed to reset them. I deactivated everything, so now we don't have signal. And that was the first time that I quick saved this whole time in a crisis. But there's not much we can really do. We do have a static antenna on here, so as soon as we get close enough to Kerbal, if we can reach one of those satellites, one of those relays, like that one right there, if we get close enough, we might be able to bounce a signal off of it. I'd like to get the science, you know, we are gonna technically bring it back, but it's most likely gonna explode upon impact, if not in the atmosphere. So here we go, we bounced our signal, we got close enough to one of those relay dishes, so let's just go ahead and extend all of our antennas. And once again, we now have full control. So let's just go ahead and transmit the science right now. I would have liked to show you it fully with remote tech, but at this point I just kind of want to save the mission. So now we're transmitting all the science, and we are getting a little extra because of the probe frenzy campaign that we ran from our admin. That is from the strategy mod. So now there's nothing left to do for the satellite except for point itself retrograde and prepare for a very fiery re-entry. And it's funny too, it looks like we might actually end up dive bombing the KSC over there. So we've got no electric charge, so we time warp time warp ahead a little bit, and that fills up our electricity, which allows the rest of our science to be transmitted. We only get 119.8, or that is what we ended up with, our total. But still well worth it. So now we are just going to kind of escort this satellite back down to whatever end it might see. And we still have some control over it, so we kick on the engine to just kind of slow ourselves down and utilize whatever fuel we can before it all explodes. There goes our engine, there goes our fuel tank, and now all we are is a probe core with a few experiments hanging out the side, refusing to blow up. But we survived. Yeah, I know. I didn't think we would either, but we did. We see a nice thunderstorm to welcome us home. Just letting the atmosphere dictate how we fall, because there's nothing else we can do. I don't think we have any control over this. There's definitely no parachutes on it. All we got are some flags and some science experiments, but that is what the exploration is about. Oh, look at that mountain right there. Yeah, I think we're close to the KSC here. Not close enough to cover it, but I think we're in the neighborhood. Nice thunderstorms going on. That can't threaten my good day. We just got a whole bunch of science. We're paving the way for our agency to make bigger and bolder missions. Here we are, coming back in the grassland. It's getting rained on a little bit. And soon we reach the planet once again. I mean, we don't survive for very long, but that was to be expected. Honestly, I didn't think we would make it through the atmosphere, so... But anyways, that's where I'm going to leave today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're looking forward for more KXP. If you did, please consider giving me a like, drop me a comment, let me know your thoughts, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care.